and welcome to Turner Classic Movies. I'm Ben Mankiewicz. My guest, as we continue our conversation about movies that impacted the culture, is producer and screenwriter Larry Karaszewski. Larry, welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to watch these movies with you.
First movie we're going to talk about tonight, from 1947, Gregory Peck in Gentleman's Agreement. Larry, why is this movie important?
It's important because it's one of the very first movies to deal with anti-Semitism, and it deals with it in a very deep kind of way. Actually, strange enough, the other film that deals with anti-Semitism in the early days is Crossfire, and they both came out the exact same year, and they both were nominated for Best Picture. But Crossfire is more of a genre piece. It's more of a movie about a crime that's committed, and it's committed by someone who is very obviously anti-Semitic. And Gentleman's Agreement goes a little deeper. It's the power of the movie is that it's after kind of a silent anti-Semitism. It's not going after easy targets or preaching to the converted the way a lot of liberal Hollywood movies do. I mean, almost none of the people in the film would consider themselves anti-Semites. And that's kind of the power of this movie, is that gentleman's agreement, the people who are quiet while other people are anti-Semitic.
Really sort of suggesting that it is the duty of all of us to take a stand against anti-Semitism, against racism.
Yes, that's what stunned Gregory Peck when he goes undercover, is he didn't realize how baked into the culture it is. He knew that people weren't allowed in the country clubs and things like this, but he didn't realize that his friends were a part of it, that his girlfriend was a silent anti-Semite, that even the act of pretending to be a Jew made people nervous. You know, do you have to pretend to be a Jew this weekend? We're going to meet my family. And it was those kind of things that makes really the power of this movie and why I think it's so important today.
Yeah, and you use that phrase, good people. I mean, that's a phrase that we see and we hear in the script.
That's the biggest discovery I've made about this whole business, Kathy. The good people, the nice people.
The idea that these are good people, that this is complicated, or at least they perceive themselves as good people. And I think the movie is even willing to say that they're good people. I mean, that's what makes it complicated, is that it's not like you want to...
That's what makes it complicated, and that's what makes it really interesting and good, and that it's almost the people consider themselves woke, if you use today's phrase, yet there are certain things that they don't even realize that is offensive. I think one of the most fascinating characters in the movie is June Havoc plays her. She's Gregory Peck's secretary. She's Jewish herself, but she's changed her last name so people won't know she's Jewish. That uncovers the fact that the company that Gregory Peck works for, the people who hired him to write this story about anti-Semitism, wouldn't hire a secretary who was Jewish. And so everything starts tumbling down. And June Havoc herself, even though she is Jewish, she sort of even sympathizes with people who don't like Jews. She's like, well, you know, there's some loud ones.
You know as well as I do the sort that starts trouble in a place like this and the sort that doesn't, like you or me. So what's the sense of pinning me down?
That moment where she says that we bear the responsibility for making people dislike us by acting like the way they stereotype Jews, right?
Yeah, one of the interesting things is this movie was produced by Daryl Zanuck, who was not a Jew. And there's a sequence in the movie where the editor of the magazine, who's basically doing this big story about anti-Semitism, meets a colleague who is Jewish, and he says to him, like, hey, why are you stirring up trouble? Why? And he was bringing the things up. And so Zanuck was in that kind of position where a lot of the other studio heads were not Jews, that he was the one who took it on himself to make this film about anti-Semitism.
Yeah, more often than not, on big, important cultural issues, Daryl Zanuck led the way, at least in comparison to other studio executives.
Yeah, no, he was extraordinary in that every couple of years he would make these big message pictures, movies like Pinky or The Grapes of Wrath. He thought it was important that movies not only entertain, but sometimes try to change society.
You mentioned, Larry, earlier, Crossfire, also 1947. I think it's significant that these movies come out then, because 47, the first year where every picture, presumably released by the studios, didn't start production until the end of World War II.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that in a weird sense, the war is over and all the war propaganda is over, and now America is starting to examine its own society. World War II is not really mentioned that much in Gentleman's Agreement until a sequence towards the end where John Garfield plays a returning soldier, and he is Jewish. and he tells I think Dorothy McGuire a tale of he was on the front line with a fellow Jewish soldier who got hit, and one of the last things he heard was one of his fellow, someone who was on his own side, giving him an anti-Semitic remark. And so this guy who was dying for democracy, dying to fight fascism, actually died. The last thing he heard was his own side criticizing him. And so that's an extremely powerful moment in the film.
Yeah. Larry, good stuff. Thanks very much.
Now, thank you. Let's watch Gentleman's Agreement.
Yeah, here it is. As Larry set it up nicely, stealing my job. I love it. From 1947, directed by Elia Kazan, Gregory Peck leads the cast of Gentleman's Agreement. Welcome back. I'm Ben Mankiewicz, once again joined by screenwriter and producer Larry Karaszewski. We just saw Gentleman's Agreement with Gregory Peck, directed by Elia Kazan. Impressive film and important in 1947, as finally Hollywood willing to call out anti-Semitism and call it out directly.
Yeah, no, it took me a long time actually to watch this movie. I love all older films, and this movie, for some reason, when they rank the Best Picture winners, always tends to be down on the bottom. I think it's just because it's a message picture, and often message pictures age poorly. Because after like 50, 60, 70 years, people feel like they've already heard the message. But I feel like this movie goes deeper and darker and the places that you wouldn't expect. And so I think it still has a lot to say to people today.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's one thing to make a movie where the bad guys are neo-Nazis. It's something else to call out your friends at the country club.
Yeah. No, it's one of those things where the first 15 minutes you actually think it's the movie you're kind of expecting. And then once Gregory Peck gets the idea, it's just like the movie changes. It clicks. And from that moment on, you're really along for the ride. And it's a very impressive film.
I'm going to guess if a skilled screenwriter like yourself were attacking this story now, it might have the courage to have Gregory Peck say no to Dorothy McGuire and start dating Celeste Holm. That would have been a little bold.
Oh my God, that I would say is the one thing that drives me crazy when I watch this movie is Celeste Holm is perfect. She doesn't get the guy, but she wins Best Supporting Actress, so she gets the Oscar instead. But she is not playing the Eve Arden role. She's playing this wonderful, great person that just like everything about her is fantastic. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's sexy. She gets it. She's not an anti-Semite. Why he doesn't just run into her arms, I have no idea.
Yeah, although ultimately Peck, of course, keeps forgiving Dorothy McGuire, and I get that part of the movie, and the couple has to work together. But his sort of rage at it, and he never mitigates that. Right? I mean, he says things like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can be a little overbearing," but he never backs away from that sense that no, you're supposed to stand up and tell people off who talk this way.
But what's interesting, I would say, is as a screenwriter, it's always like your character has to undergo a change. Gregory Peck kind of doesn't go through a change. He is Gregory Peck from start to finish. He is all-American guy. She's the one who kind of undergoes a change. It is that dinner with John Garfield where she finally gets it, and that allows her to end up with Gregory Peck. She gets the fact that she has been lacking in this area.
That's right. All right, Larry, thanks very much. Great stuff. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's fun.
We'll stick around. Larry and I have one more film to discuss tonight, released the year before from 1946. The Best Years of Our Lives is up next on Turner Classic Movies.